Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so.
I asked him about his own political evolution.
So then what was your wake-up to what was wrong with that line of thinking?
Facts.
Thomas Sowell is an American author, economist, political commentator, social theorist, and senior fellow at the Hoover Institute of Stanford University. Sowell was born June 30th of 1930 in Gastonia, North Carolina, to a poor family. After his family migrated to the North, he grew up in Harlem, New York. Poverty, financial difficulties, and dilapidated home conditions drove him to drop out of Stuyvesant High School and serve in the Marine Corps during the Korean War. Upon returning to the U.S., Sowell took night school at Harvard University. Before attending Harvard University, graduated magna cum laude in 1958. He earned his master's degree in economics from Columbia University the next year and received his doctorate in economics from the University of Chicago in 1968. All this and much more to go. I see no excuses here. This gentleman put himself through all these achievements and not a peep of complaint or a sense of being oppressed like so many of our students today. But let's see more. Wikipedia, sorry for the interruption. Continue. During his academic career, he served on the faculties of several universities, including Cornell University, Amherst College, UCLA, and currently Stanford University. He also worked at a think tank such as Urban Institute. Since 1977, he has worked at the Hoover Institute, where he rose to prominence under his mentor and teacher, Milton Friedman, a senior fellow on public policy and economics. Sowell is a conservative on social and economic issues. Sowell was an important figure to the new conservative movement during the Reagan era, influencing fellow economists such as Walter E. Williams and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Sowell was a recipient of the National Humanities Medal for President George W. Bush in 2002. He also is the author of more than 45 books and has been a syndicated columnist in more than 150 newspapers. Wow, I'm going to step off to let our editors roll clips to see this gentleman in action because I'm running out of paper. Before we continue, why is this man not taught to us in all schools? Why? This is truly someone to emulate and look up to learn from, and pass it forward. Why? Editor, roll clip, fair use.
I went to the University of Chicago as a Marxist. After a year of studying under Milton Friedman, I was still a Marxist. But one summer of working in the government was enough to start returning around.
Really, what happened to you there?
Well, nothing happened to me, but that I realized that the government was nowhere close to being capable of doing what people on the left wanted the government to do. And that, in fact, we'd be lucky if they didn't make things worse. For example, I was in the Labor Department, and they administered the minimum wage law. To me, the question was, did minimum wage laws make poor people better off or worse off? Mm-hmm. That was not the question for them. The minimum wage law provided 1/3 of their total budget. And they weren't going to look at this other way. And as I tried to get into the question of does this cause unemployment and stuff like that, there was no enthusiasm whatsoever.
A whole group of people who are the single female head of a household. And yes, cut off welfare tomorrow. What will they do? What will be their immediate response? At what price? Through this insidious, corrupting set of programs run by the federal government, which in fact makes her employable and a taxpayer. It's an interesting notion of trying to get people in a productive mode.
Tom Sowell.
It's incredible the way you start the story in the middle, as if there's a predestined amount of poverty, a predestined amount of unemployment, and that the welfare system is not itself in any way responsible for that.
I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts, and I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that.
Oh, the argument is based on the belief that people will change their behavior as you change the tax rates. Those on the left often act as if human beings are just like inert blocks of wood or like chess pieces that you can move around on the chessboard to put wherever you want to carry out some grand design. But of course, people react to these things. Now, it's a theory, it's a hypothesis, and you could test it. Almost never is it tested. People instead say, oh, you just want to give tax cuts to the rich. The rich not only paid more taxes after the tax cuts for the rich, as they call it, they paid a higher percentage of all taxes. Then this started back in the 1920s. In the early 20s, the tax rate on the top income was 73%. The people making over $100,000 paid something like 30% of all taxes. By the end of the decade, the tax rate on the top had been cut to 24%. People making over $100,000 now paid 65% of all taxes. And the reason is quite simple, that when you have the tax rate at 73%, people simply don't pay it. They put their money into tax-exempt securities and arrange their financial affairs. So what we're really talking about, do you want a symbolic high tax rate on the high-income people to win votes politically, which the rich themselves are not going to pay? Or do you really want more tax revenue coming into the government?
I am not in that 25% learning style that is pure academic. I'm a very bright person, but I do not do well in an academic setting. I think that adding some of these touchy-feely and interactive classes, I mean, I got through a chemistry class because I had an instructor who saw that, you know, the book was hard for me, so the lab part was the part I could excel in. I think this is very important to, you know, not all of us are book learners.
Well, you know, I could say that I also have a high opinion of myself, and I'm not very good at dancing, but I really don't think that ballet schools should be adjusted to take for people like me. People like me shouldn't be in ballet. And the school you have to realize too that it's not a question of what you like or what you're good at. There are requirements in the world that if you're going to build bridges across the river, you have to know a certain amount of math. If you don't want those cars to fall into the river as the bridge collapses under them, and if you want doctors who can cure people, you're going to have to have people who know chemistry, whether they like it or not. So we don't have the option of just doing whatever happens to feel good to us.
It's true of blacks in the United States.
Is it worthless to do something for anybody but the very poor?
I would like to see the well-off take care of themselves. If they can't, who can?
Thank you very much.
No, I would agree with that, but you would also have to agree that generally speaking, women are paid less, for example, for the same jobs as men.
No, I would not. I would not agree with that. If you're talking about women with the same number of years of experience, with the same continuous service, et cetera, then when I look at that, I don't find that disparity. I find, for example, in many cases, the women are making more, depending upon how you break the data down. The difference with women is between married women and everybody else. That's the real difference.
But this sort of reminded me of what's happening with these Wall Street protests. And this is what you said from the Thomas Sowell Reader. This is the age of complaining classes, whether they are lawyers, community activists, radical feminists, race hustlers, or other squeaking wheels looking for oil. No society ever thrived because it had a large and growing class of parasites living off of those who produce. Is what we're hearing with these Wall Street protests just from this complaining class?
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine when I was their age that I would have enough money that I could afford to hang around in parks for weeks on end, not doing any work and not bringing in any income. One of Barack Obama's great gifts is the ability to say things that are absolutely absurd and make them sound not only plausible but inspiring. But there are so many people among the intelligentsia especially who are absolutely immune to facts.
What do you make of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? She has this growing movement, even among some people who historically haven't been particularly persuaded by the socialist meme. I mean, but there's something about her that seems to be very popular. Do you think it's going to continue, or will she fall flat?
I don't know. Again, it depends upon whether people go by facts or by rhetoric. If they go by rhetoric, she's a rising star.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents the Bronx, not all that far from where you grew up. Quote, "To me, capitalism is irredeemable." Close quote. Tom Sowell replies,
"To me, she's irredeemable."
All right.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open to a legend. Yes, I said it, a legend. Mr. Sowell, respect, sir. Wow, your story is remarkable and impeccable. Thank you for your work and continued service to Americans. I will continue to bring my best to shadow your works and keep them alive. You guys do your research and check Mr. Sowell out. Give him the love and respect he is due. He is still alive. I still can't fathom why he isn't taught next to Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Abe Lincoln, and so on. I guess because he says it like it is, and people get offended these days. No worries, Mr. Sowell. I'm not here to make friends. Get offended. On this channel, I will continue to bring truth. So help me God. He's in charge here. As the great words of George Washington, quote, real men despise battle, but will never run from it. End of quote. And, quote, if we are wise, let us prepare for the worst. End of quote. Hence, what this channel is all about. And one more just for the road. Quote, I will die on my feet before I'll live on my knees. Quote, end of quote. George Washington. Thank you guys for your support. See you on the next one. Stay free.